How do you decide on the brownfield versus greenfield, right? And scaling inside your operation?
The first thing I would ask is, where are you at in your existing footprint? I think a lot of times you have to look at the holistic cost. If you're closer to the West Coast, but let's say 45 or 50% of your customers on the East Coast, you may be eating more in transportation costs than any automation savings you might have, right? And I would say the first thing is make sure that you understand the total cost of your supply chain. Supply chain is a chain, right? If there's links, any one link can screw up the rest of the links if you don't think about it at a composite viewpoint. So I would say that's the first thing. Then I'll go back to, it's interesting that they say e-com volatility. And while there's still almost always a baseline number, right? The average number on a weekly basis, which is the biggest challenge. And then what is that peak number that you have to solve for? It's not all equal. And oftentimes you can get an ROI relatively quickly for the baseline number of units in e-com, as long as it's big enough. If you're a really small provider with very few units on it per day, that's going to be harder. But in general, I think that's the first thing. And then if you can get a solution that you can trial and solve that baseline number, and then it's scalable as your growth goes better, or you validate that you're able to operate the automation and it is reducing your costs, that's when I would go back and ask for the secondary funding. I'm a huge believer in staged approaches, right? So pilot, moving on to phase 1, phase 2, to really drive that incremental savings so that you're proving it out along the way. And the final thing I would tell is really take a look, if you can, at what other people are doing with that automation. I think most established automators in the field will let you look at one of their customers. You want to talk to their ops, their technicians, your hourly workforce. Does this work? What are the challenges? What have you learned from? And I think if you do that up front, you have such a higher degree of success on the back end. Understand, once again, the problem statement, solve initially for the baseline, prove that you can do it, and then phased approach to the outcome.
Yeah. If you have e-com volatility, right, you should be thinking about how much automation you bring in. You need that baseline to say, okay, here's at least the baseline that I'm going to operate off of. And the second part, like my observation is, look, brownfield sites, you got to sit on each process's ROI because you're not automating the entire facility. No one does that. You have multi-year initiatives to be able to do that, and that's what you focus on. Greenfield's a whole different ballgame. You are building for the future, 10 years out, where your business is going to be, or potentially 5 years out, right? At that point, your CapEx dollars are also that much higher going in. And you can now design to an entirely automated process. And the amount of times I've seen where you engineer something in an Excel spreadsheet and then you put it on in actual physical operations and how it does not work, it's definitely something to observe. But just be careful of that particular piece.